insight basis you're winning the award last year on the fabulous work done. But we've had the most unusual of years. And I wanted to understand from you that whilst at one level, certain segments of your business where you already, you'd got the digital curve, et cetera, would have got a fillip, I would imagine, from economically or business wise from what's happened. But to run the internal organization in this scenario, what did it take? And importantly, how has it changed your perspective on what you believe HR priorities are and the shape of your organization, what it needs to be going forward, looking out? That's the big story.
I think many layered questions. So I'll answer, I hope, to the best of my ability in the next few minutes. But first, I do want to commend and I'm thankful to People Strong for getting you back again. Because last year, one of the biggest reasons why the maiden effort of People Strong was received very well at an industry level. And I was amongst the few who were lucky to even be recognized with an award. But irrespective of that, what I did like was you chairing the jury, and the way you conducted the jury brought in a lot of credibility, objectivity, and transparency at the same time. So, honestly, it's very rare that NP remembers a note coming in from somebody saying, this award, have we participated or not? He just forwards it and he presumes that the system will do the right call. And that's what we do as HR professionals 90% of the time. But this one, he himself was impressed with the personal touch and with I would say it was very personal. It wasn't, in a sandbox, send something and, there would be a bingo dabba which will come out and something will happen. So there is a lot of credibility that went behind the scene, and it was clearly visible at the front as well. So I must commend you for that. And that's why I say congratulations and good decision and great decision by Pankaj and the team to have got you back. I'm hoping all of that to be the same and more. So our expectations rise. But coming back to the question that you ask, the world of HR has changed overnight. Rather, I'll be very frank. If there was a barometer for me to get evaluated as an HR professional, that barometer overnight has shifted multi-fold, because the function has in this last few months taken on the baton of one, driving crisis management in the companies. From something which was used to be a very dust book, book which is dusted somewhere and you just, revise the protocols possibly once in 10 years and make sure it's a good one where the law is being followed, literally came in at the front and center, wherein HR leaders took the charge and mantle of sustenance of business operations. And this wasn't just a nice people activity. This was actually something where the businesses could go into a doldrum if a sound HR professional will not take on the charge of managing the crisis that one, handled. Whether it was the operating challenges of what operations to keep alive and what operations can be shut, to ensuring that the health and safety of all the workers who are coming forward to deliver on the in-person duties. And I'm sharing only from a perspective that we were an essential service from day one. So our operations never stopped. And our COVID warriors, right from May 18th till now, continued even a day's lapse to be in offices, to deliver on the continued broadcasting that all of us saw in our televised modes, etc. The second one, this is entirely on taking charge and mantle on managing crisis, managing continued business operations. And the leaders who thrived in it are primarily the ones who had business acumen and business first in their head. We said classically, हम बहुत बार बोलते हैं कि business acumen होना चाहिए, HR leaders में कम है. But here and now, this wasn't a nice to have. This was literally the top of the mind ask of. The second one, to put very honestly was evangelization of converting your entire priority list on HR to digital formats. I could have never understood, how to do engagement virtually. And I'm using a very tactical example of engagement, which I never realized was such a big driver of discrete trust in the organizations, that shifting it over time to virtual formats and ensuring that employees were still connected to that virtual walls of where they see a value of the company, to where they see the ethos of the company. That's what the four walls of a corporate office do for you, right? They keep you engaged, they keep you in the loop. So converting your entire platform to digital means was very, very challenging, I must say. And the third one in the same spectrum was continuing to harness the culture of the organization. I think this was one of the most difficult ones to tackle because I've said it at few forums, and I think it resonates well as much as I speak about it. Is that culture got co-curated in this new pandemic at homes, and it wasn't just a recipe where you come into an office and you experience it. Organization on the other side also got to experience what coexisting with an employee's home meant. When an employee said कि मुझे बर्तन धोना है and I need time, this is the first time in the history of humankind where a corporate leader would have said, "Ha, theek hai, it's okay, I understand." So, just kind of having that culture wherein vulnerabilities coexist, where understanding exists, adaptability exists together, and the organization also learns as fast as the individuals are adapting to the realities, were pretty big challenges. So, I can continue to go on and on, but honestly speaking, this would be largely my whole and soul of how HR leaders in these times have got evaluated, apart from our ability to continue to keep uh, the development agenda at the forefront. Because suddenly to get your people skilled and be technology savvy also was a challenge. But that list can go on and on. I'll just pause on this.
You have very rightfully prided yourself in a business that is super cutthroat, very young generations, etc., etc., on being able to build a culture that is sticky. I won't define what that culture is, but it has been sticky, stickier than most of the rest of industry. What was the toughest in this? Where were the biggest bottlenecks? And as you go forward, I will ask you how much of it will revert back into what was. What was the toughest to tackle as you co-curated and as the organization became more humble in recognizing, again, beautifully put by you, that we have no choice but to adapt as fast as individuals, and all leaders had better pay heed to the sensitivities of individual homes and requirements, particularly women, but we'll come to that in a bit.
I'd say the most difficult one was to help employees find balance in this madness. Uh, because what had happened is that given the high ownership commitment quotient which all our employees carry on their sleeves, this is family to us. This is an extended family to us. This company is not just something that provides livelihood, but this is an extension of my family. That's how employees are operating in the system. What happened is when suddenly the physical office space went out of the picture, the biggest challenge which came in was to continue this thread of one family. And there came in people landing up over displaying their commitment by trying to work for 20 hours a day. And honestly, I don't know what the right answer is, but that I think burnt a lot of people out in the first few months itself, first couple of months, I'd say. There were definitely call outs on account of people facing mental well-being challenges, people completely feeling burnt out, and so on. So I would say tackling that fine balance wherein a leader finds that balance of discrete and transactional trust in an employee.
Mm.
And at the same time, for the employee to feel confident about their commitment and capability delivery to the organization. And they don't completely land up killing themselves in the effort to do it.
Yeah.
And I did realize that in India Inc., we landed up doing a lot of it.
Mm.
हम लोग मतलब सुबह 6 बजे उठ के भी काम कर रहे हैं एंड शाम के 9 बजे भी कर रहे हैं एंड वी आर जस्ट ट्राइंग टू प्रूव टू आवर लीडर और अ सेट ऑफ लीडर्स दैट आई एम एक्टिव आई एम वर्किंग
I'm
you
a-
won't do that in office. And we had to have upon realizing this, we actually held many mental well-being series after that, which were very reality focused,
Yes.
which were very vulnerable to showcase, stating that presentism is not equals to performance,
Mm.
and our culture is not built on it. So don't try to overdo something which can easily be done by you changing your perspective towards KRAs.
Yeah.
Your KRA is not to spend 18 hours. Your KRA is to deliver X, Y, Z. And
Mm.
if you're delivering it, trust the leader to trust you. And for the leaders also, trust your employee to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that in my mind actually was the biggest challenge. And I'm glad to say that we were able to tide through it beautifully well.
Mm.
The second part of your question on how much do you see it going back to the old ways? I think it's for leaders and their people to know the fine balance to do it. I don't envisage 100% work from home strategies work. The
Mm.
hybrid is the way out, wherein you'd have to continue to get people together to collaborate and at the same time find the strength of this pattern that you've been trained on rigorously in the last 9 months to give you balance. I'll give you a very small one before I pause. In Bombay, people who live in Sobo, South Bombay, they take 2 hours to come to office.
Yeah.
Or somebody who lives in Vashi or Navi Mumbai takes 2.5 hours one day, one way to come. If I'm that employee and if I'm that employee's leader, why would I want to do that all 5 days? So this is a realization which is now building into the organization, and we are going to find our sweet spot hopefully in the next few months in a hybrid model where definitely presentism is not equals to performance.
So, so how does that link back into HR priorities? What are you going to shift in how you measure performance of leaders? What are you going to shift in terms of, the partnership that HR will offer business in this arena, in this hope of that hybrid?
So I'm still in the cooks, if you ask me, Radha. This is not a completed meal, and I don't have a recipe for it, like many of my colleagues.
Yes.
But what's going in as ingredients of the recipe are one, continuing to harness the power of trust in the organization
Mm.
and do it by ways and means wherein, firstly, one size does not fit all. So you'll have to segment it and target it to where which strategy works. For example, we have a team which is distribution sales. Now, distribution sales by design needs to be at the LCO or the local cable operators and for the large cable operators to do customer visits. It's okay. But if
Yeah.
you are required to do it 10 times in a month, can you do it with 2 times?
Yeah.
So some of those changes in the KRAs and the modes of operating jobs is one part. And continuing in this journey to build trust and to strengthen that trust
Mm.
between employees and leaders is going to be one priority which I hope is there. The second is not beating the bush on this subject, but this is a business critical requirement.
Mm.
Your entire HR operating model has to be digitally agile.
Yeah.
हम बोलते बहुत रहते हैं पर हम फिर भी वो अपने कंफर्ट ऑफ एक्सेल फाइल्स में आ जाते हैं, कंफर्ट ऑफ मैनुअल ऑपरेशंस में आ जाते हैं. And I think this is one time wherein the push now has come from the way new normal operates. So I don't envisage manual operations anywhere to play a role. And if there is a smart organization out there, they would have already automated their entire transactional and operational life cycle. and would have just left the role of HR playing as a coach, a confidant, a communicator in the system. So, so I kind of can think on my feet and under these two buckets. The third one is massive, which is, and these are not in random, these are random orders. These are not prioritization.
Yes.
It's actually the upskilling or reskilling game. One big part which I'm realizing, and we're doing this exercise internally, is we're sharpening out across all our job types, which are the jobs that contributed at max in this virtual work format, and which are the jobs we learned to live without. And every organization, I'm sure, had those pigeonholes and those white tigers. We're envisaging that in being able to clearly calibrate what my skills of significance and skills of future are, I would also be able to build in my reskilling agenda for the rest of my population. Today, I don't think an average employee in my company, if asked what your development need is, will actually give me the Johari window box, which is I also don't know and you also don't know. Because that's where the problem is. I don't know what the capability of that individual is. And the same individual does not know that her or his skill is actually defunct because they were the lowest required in the system in the last 9 months. And to bridge that gap and not impact livelihoods is a very, very tough battle. And this reskilling agenda we've just picked up, and I'm hoping for it to rather put a landscape wherein we are able to upskill a lot of our people to be relevant for the organization as compared to creating redundancies and leaving people to the whims. We don't believe as an organization, we don't believe that you tell somebody that you're defunct and go figure. If we tell somebody you're defunct, we also give them the ammunition to upskill themselves. And a classical case therein is we do realize that a set of our employees who are in sales coordination jobs, I'm giving you this as a random example, whose job was to primarily coordinate meetings between the supplier, which is your OEMs, and the ad sales team, and make sure that the slots which are being bought, they're connected with the channel's free slots, the 10-second ads which come. We realized that in the last 9 months, we didn't have a choice but to automate that entire process. Wherein an ad salesperson said that I got 100 seconds from Nestle, and Nestle wants these 3 products to be highlighted in these 5 shows. And an automated system actually prioritized this in these shows basis the rate that we finalized. Now, this entire job is gone for me, but that individual is still capable. So for me, the next game out, which is going in, is that how do I upskill this individual to actually get into alternate works, which are going to continue to be important for me, whether it is an anvil into education, tech, whether it is an anvil into gaming, and so on and so forth.
And when you look at the organization to come, as you said, so much will change at the business or product side, and all allied functions around it are going to have to go through that shift and change. You have, in terms of physical offices, etc., I would imagine that there would be the hybrid model will allow for most to go back to business as usual, albeit with new skills and with new prioritization of digital, etc. Do you anticipate when you look outward that the HR team itself, the one that you lead, do you see, I was talking to Shubro at Aditya Birla Capital, and he said, this whole thing that for years we've been saying line manager to HR and HR to line manager, etc. He says it's so real right now because I'll never get either up to speed if I don't most actively encourage. Now he has a humongous team, so there can actually be scale in what he's doing. But what do you see in your own HR team? What will shift the game? You said business acumen. Clearly, the ones that have business acumen are the ones that will move further up the cut. Digital quotient we discussed, transactions out of the way, so that whole business partnership, etc. But if you were to say, Radha, this on the whole is also lacking, or this is there in spades and that's really saved me, then which of what would you raise?
I'm going to give you my two-part view onto this, and one which was a pre-COVID view, which was very public, and I still hold some amount of percentage, I would say, conviction when I state it, and the other one is where my perspective has shifted in the last few months. Pre-COVID, honestly, rather for 2 years pre-COVID onwards, my prediction for HR function was that it's dying its natural death, and it's okay because not every function will have its prominence in the skills of the future. And the only reason I always used to call that out is that you don't have success stories of HR getting into line functions. Line functions coming into HR is enough and multi. And in fact, if you talk to 9 out of 10 CEOs, somehow their comfort is for their CFO to become their CHRO, or for their sales head, come supply chain head to become a CHRO. But to ask, will your CHRO be able to take up a supply chain role? The answer is going to be no, no, no. Yeah, that person doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
And honestly speaking, it used to make me feel sad. But at the same time, some of the devil is also in the doing of how we represent our function, which traditionally we all have is this is an ivory tower and we only do the fancy thing of evaluating everybody, and that's it. So for me, in a nutshell, HR already was dying its natural death. It was only a matter of time that the roles would have got converted into experience officers, integrated with customer, consumer, or would have got them integrated 100% into the role of what I say as the chief advisor to the CEO versions. Because you didn't need beyond that a people function. Everything getting automated. Honestly, you don't need an entire function just to enable that automation. Where COVID actually has changed my perspective is where HR landed up playing an active role, which is in taking people along business continuity in the organization. And in my mind, I think that balance got struck only because there was an HR leader at the helm of BCP. If it was a line leader at the helm of BCP, that balance of empathy with business sustainability would not have come. And I say that that balance is something which will help many leaders in HR to thrive and survive in the times. They shouldn't lose their focus on what's critical to drive business sustenance and growth and be active in driving it, playing a contributor role thereon, and not just take their step back stating कि अभी वो BCP का role खत्म हो गया, let me just get back into my talent agenda. The second one is where I saw HR again playing a critical role, and these are skills which may necessarily not be the full requirement of a CXO or a CEO. That skill has been that of being the neutral advocate and at the same time a coach to the CXOs. This was one time when I don't think many CXOs had their feet completely grounded because they didn't know what they were handling. And not that the HR person know what to do, but at least that sounding board and a neutral voice to lean on and to hear out the concern of the CEO and their respectable directs actually helped them at least unburden a lot of that crisis which they were going through. So that role of a coach and a confidant in my mind became very, very active and helped. So if my advice continues to my own team, that advice goes into say that continue to sharpen these respective skills. If you were to thrive and survive, which is be a coach, confidant, and communicator in the organization, because that's how you continue to build the bridge. Rest all in my mind, I don't think there's enough and more left in the HR function to create agenda and say I survive.